Konnichiwa, Kawaii Critic here to review My Little Pony Season 6, Episode 5, Gauntlet of Fire. So we begin this episode with Spike and Rarity in the Pachinko mines, where they are mining for gems. And then we see Spike start to glow, and it makes everyone question, Nani? So, Rarity takes Spike to the castle, where Celestia and Luna are just chilling with Twilight. And Luna says something among the exposition that's a bit baffling. She explains that they know about dragon lore and the dragon culture and this dragon summoning, but they don't know about alicorns in Equestria being born? I'm starting to see a bit of troll in Luna now. Or it's probably just bad writing. But that's probably one of the few gripes I have with this episode. Celestia points out that her doing the cloud stuff is apparently helping a lot of ponies because she's so busy all the time. So Spike's too nervous to go by himself, which in all honesty, I think this episode could have actually been a bit stronger if Spike did go by himself. But I'll get to that in a bit. Anyways, Rarity and Twilight pretty much just tag along. And thus we are entered the Dragonland, and we see Lord Emperor Torch and his daughter, Ember, emerge. She wants to prove that she can be a leader, and once the glowing Spike is no longer glowing, he doesn't want any part of this. So he's about to leave, but the Dragon Lord is like, you ain't going nowhere. And Spike's like, I'm a coward. I'm gonna go, please. And Torch says, okay, fine, just leave. But then Spike sees that the other dragons have pretty either bizarre or really bad plans for Equestria. Thus, Spike feels obligated to compete in order to win so that these other dragons that he's seeing aren't gonna be in charge. So we begin the competition, and it starts off with a little bit of swimming as Spike is spiraled into the water. And Twilight and Rarity follow along. Spike sees a dragon fall down that's in some Undyne armor and thus saves what he assumes to be a him, but quickly learns that it is Ember. So Ember is saved, and she's curious as to why he would go out of his way to do such things. And Garble gets a rock thrown at him, and he gets pummeled down into the ground and calls out for help. And Garble shows that being a bully sometimes just doesn't go your way in this episode. But in the moment, Spike is still selfless and still decides to help Garble. Even after that, the Garble decides, hey, I'm gonna kick sand on you because I'm still a one-dimensional bully. But, we see that Ember's also stood up for Spike, covering for him as Garble spilled some ponies, but Ember said that she stole some. Wow, she's a thief, but not really. Anyways, Garble flies away, and Ember decides that it'd probably be best to work with Spike, and they avoid some big rocks together and land. They see that the cave's a bit dangerous, and thus they go forward. We see a bit of that retrending dragon that's probably holding Twilight and Rarity as they squeeze on through. And we get Spike and Ember on the other side. Twilight and Rarity appear on the other side, and Ember is a bit confused, but then she sees him once again coming to the rescue of Rarity. And she's still kind of puzzled as to why. He says that that's just what friends do. They look out for each other. And it gets Ember thinking, but she still wants to be on her own and save the day and be the Dragon Ember. The Dragon Lord, I should say. Thus, we continue, and Spike sees the finale go as they went through all these repeating hallways, and it's implied that they go through them a few times. So we go through them, and then we see Garbo once again, and this time he is stopped by an incoming Amber. She spears him into the wall. My goodness, she is Roman Reigns in disguise. All hail the Ember Roman Empire. Anyways, Spike tries to continue, but Garble is not giving in. This Dragon WrestleMania pay-per-view is heating up as Ember and Spike try to continue to work together. But Garble is throwing Spike over the cliff, cheating his way to almost get to victory. But Ember comes through with the hooking, spinning, flying suplex-like move, and thus picks up Spike and allows him to continue to the end. He hails the gem crystal empire crystal thing and becomes the Dragon Lord for a few seconds. And within the few moments he has, he proclaims that Garble has to hug every dragon he sees on his way home. So he starts to do so, and he gets a little blushing blue big dragon. Anywho, Spike passes the crystal Ember trophy thing to Ember, thus making her the Dragon Lord. So she brings it back to her father, and he's a bit dismissive at first, but realizes after what she says that she's right. Spike feels glad about what he's done, and he walks off with Rarity and Spike. And that's the episode in a bunch hole. So overall, I'd say this episode is a pretty good Spike episode. However, there is something I want to address about it. It's also a very dangerous episode in the fact that it could lead to nothing. It's a bridge episode is what this is. It's setting something up, and it's pretty clear that it's trying to. So if they don't do something after this that involves either Ember or Twilight or Rarity treating Spike in a different way, then this episode was kind of pointless, to be honest. And as I said before, Twilight and Rarity didn't really need to be there. Spike could have just said that he'll take notes for Twilight and that he'll look after himself. But I guess it does also help build Spike as a character who's someone who's a bit still too nervous to travel on his own, but in the end still tries to do the heroics and do the right thing. So I think if they took Twilight and Rarity out, it doesn't really subtract really too much, and maybe they could have had a few moments more with Ember, but I don't know. If they bring Ember back, then that will be justified, I feel. And I guess this kind of breaks the question I had in one of my earlier videos about Spike becoming a main villain. I actually even started writing this whole prolonged story about how Spike would become evil somehow. It was really baffling and confusing, but I'll share it with you anyways. So, here's my dumb idea that was gonna be this two-parter thing where Spike he starts the episode and he starts to overhear the ponies, and he's getting mistreated as per usual as he has been before, and it's like a mini montage of this happening, and Spike just starts to get sick of it, thus starting to shift the way he approaches the ponies, and he starts to overhear things that make him uncomfortable and he just wants a bit of revenge after hearing all this mean stuff, and he finally breaks. And he decides to do something really dark and bad. He decides to leave a note and head off into the Crystal Empire, where he also somehow managed to trick Princess Cadence into doing something, thus leading him to the throne by himself. And at some point, he becomes the king of the Crystal Empire. Like some magical crown thing, like he obtains it and he gets new magic and all this cool stuff. And he somehow, I don't have all the details in quite yet, but he somehow manages to find a way to get Twilight and Princess Cadence to actually fight each other. I was thinking something like he writes a note, and this note deceives Twilight into thinking that Princess Cadence is gonna like divorce like her brother, and then she's gonna abandon Princess Flutterheart, or just Flutterheart for now, I guess. And then Spike would rule and make some decrees, and some of them would be a bit crazy, and some of them would actually be pretty cool for the Crystal Empire to take on. So they actually do, because they actually somewhat respect Spike, so they start listening to his demands as a king. And then they, after the battle between Twilight and Princess Cadence, we get uh, them sort of making up and fighting together and seeing that they want to stop Spike. So they try to get their friends. They get the six. They get them over there. They all try their magic, and Spike deflects everything with his new magic. And then Spike actually beats everybody there. And then they have to also get Celestia and Luna in on the action. And they all have to use their magic, and they defeat this new tyrannous like Spike. And once the crown is removed and he finally loses, he feels so ashamed. And he actually, the end of the episode, it'd be interesting to actually see him run away from home, and we could continue his path to from this sort of heel turn into a redemption episode, like a redemption setup for Spike. But I highly doubt that that's something MLP would do at this point. It is seeming to go in a completely different direction, but it depends on where they want to go with it. I'm really, really eager to see more of Ember, because I feel like that will complete the bridge of this episode. Or, as I said earlier, have Twilight and Rarity start to see Spike in a different way. If those three things don't happen, then as I said before, I kind of feel like this episode is sort of pointless. I mean, what did it really do for Spike? Spike was the one doing all the heroics, and it was all just to give everything to Ember. So Spike sort of resorts back to the place he was before. At least that's how I feel about it. Anyways, I feel like this could be a very strong episode, but again, I feel like I have to see the second part in order to fully understand the Gauntlet of Fire. So with that being said, that's my review. I'm Kawaii Critic, and remember guys, keep it kawaii.